Hello, my name is Greg Gerardot, and this summer I interned with Schnabel Foundation Company. Schnabel specializes in geostructural engineering, which means they work on everything below the ground. I'll cover more exactly what they specialize in later on in the presentation when I go through my projects. I worked on 3 projects this summer, the first of which being a retention wall in Gallatin, Kentucky. The reason this project exists was because a hill was sliding into the river at about an inch per month. This was causing lots of problems for the road and obviously all of the houses along this road. So what Schnabel did was they installed this retention wall, which consisted of 150 soldier beams driven about 60 to 80 feet into the ground with 35 tiebacks in that were about 15 degrees lower than horizontal. And I was responsible for keeping track of subcontractor progress on this project and completing the dailies and making sure that the wall was not moving at all by reading the inclinometers. Another project I was on was installing micropiles in Iowa City. This is where Schnabel really thrives. They do a lot of micropile work, and specifically these micropiles were to set up a tower crane that would be replacing glass panels on the hospital. I was responsible for doing part of the layout for these micropiles and keeping track of the drill logs for each micropile, so recording what soil we were going through, how deep we were able to go, how many tons of concrete we put in, and how many tiebacks or how many things burst when we were going up, which creates sort of a bulb so that the tower crane will not fall over, which is very helpful. And the last project that I was on was underpinning on the Springfield Capitol building. So for this project, they're renovating the entire Capitol building, and for that they need underpinning to make sure that the building doesn't sink, which was Schnabel's job on this. So what I was responsible for going through and doing was surveying all of the points of the building to based off of a reference point to make sure that the building did not sink anymore, which it did not, which is very good. And so those were the 3 projects that I work on, so I'll break down some of my activities more specifically. First up on the Springfield job, I was monitoring elevations, which I actually got to use the surveying equipment that we're learning about now. And I would monitor each one of these pits every day and then record these into a spreadsheet, which was very helpful for analyzing all of the rest of this data at the very end. So you can kind of see about those orange numbers there. So each one of those is a pit that we had to form and fill in. And so I was also responsible for keeping track of which ones we had filled, which ones we had dry packed that day, and which ones we were going to do tomorrow, and making sure that we actually did the ones that we planned to do. Another thing that I did was I kept track of subcontractor progress on the Kentucky Gallatin job. So this was a form and rebar that they put in, which was extremely helpful for this outflow culvert. And so I made sure that this was actually where it was supposed to go. I kept track of when they started doing this, when they stopped doing it, and anything else that they did. So when they eventually poured that, I was there to take pictures, record that, and report that back to my superintendent, which was very fun. And then I kind of touched on this. I kept track of drill logs. So this is a picture of the drill rig in action, the operator standing over there to the left. So I would often walk up to the operator and say, "Hey, Derek, how is the process going? What are you hitting? What are we sort of going through right now?" And he would say, "We're going through shale right now. We just hit the water table. We just hit such and such. Oh, it looks like we have a vacancy in here somewhere." And I was responsible for filling all of that out and then documenting that. That way, later on, when they say, "Hey, this is working or this is not working, what sort of soil is around here?" Or I know we're about to do another project on the other side of the hospital building, we will refer back to those documents to bid this job again. And so that's what I was doing on the Iowa City job. I was very important in documenting the entire procedure. And then in general, on all of my projects, I was coordinating the blueprints. So here are just a few blueprints that I did. So that one on the far right is the layout for this. So I was responsible for looking at that and saying, okay, that the micropile we're drilling right now is micropile 5. It's micropile 3. Okay, we should need to do number 4 next because that's what it says for us to do on the schedule. That's what we have it as. Or we need to do this one next because we need to pour the other one tomorrow. And so I was responsible for kind of organizing that situation. And then over on the left, you can see we were bidding another job, and I was responsible for looking at that and estimating some quantities there. And so that was very fun, and I quite enjoyed that. I learned a lot this summer. One of the important things that I learned is coordination. Coordination is extremely difficult, especially for Schnabel, because they're usually subcontractors of subcontractors, so they're very specialized and our jobs are very short. So when we come in, we only expect to be there for maybe a month or two, which means that any day or two delay causes us to have to shift our entire schedule back. So I was on the Iowa City job for about 2 weeks, and on the first day, there was move-in day, and one of our trucks got delayed. And we had flights planned for 2 weeks, and we were like, well, we really got to make that time up later, which was challenging, but we were able to do it, and we finished on time, and it was perfect. So coordination was a big factor of just being able to make sure that people got where they needed to be and making sure that, all people, we weren't stepping on anybody's toes, because we would try and drill this micropile, but then, okay, well, if we drill this one now, this drill rig won't be able to get into this other section. So we would not be like, okay, we actually need to drill that one first. That kind of ties into the other big lesson that I learned, which was resource management, resource utilization, which is pretty much just saying, okay, well, we have this many forms ready, and these forms can go here and here, but if we do that, we won't be able to put them over here. And so being able to say, okay, well, if we use these forms to get this underpinning ready, then we can have these other people go and dry pack these other pits, which allows us to utilize our resources a lot better, which came in handy a lot on the Kentucky job because it's a lot bigger job site. We have a lot more subcontractors, so trying to make sure that they're always working was very critical. So that's what I learned over my internship at Schnabel Foundation Company. Thank you so much. I'm Greg Gerardot.